Hey now, Deadheads. We're back yet again with the final three reviews of the final three out of the 60 disc 2025 Grateful Dead uh, memorial box set. Enjoying the ride. I enjoyed the ride. I'll take the ride anytime I want and anytime I can. Obviously, clearly, we're still doing this in remembrance of old Bobby, who had just passed away. And so we, with heavy hearts, but we go with joy. And he'll live forever in the music. He lives forever. And just as much as Bobby and Phil and Jerry and Brent and Keith and Donna, music is forever. This music is forever. They've achieved immortality. And so on this night, though, in 1989, on 7/15/89, in the middle of a cornfield in Indiana, they're playing at Deer Creek. Might be called Rough Center, Mortgage Center, or whatever it is now, but it's always just, it's going to be Deer Creek, and that's what it'll be. But uh, after the Grateful Dead only played 15 shows at Deer Creek, it was an important venue for the band. A Midwest stop every summer from 89 to 1995. By 89, most summer tours were primarily large stadium stops with crowds exceeding 40,000 fans at bigger, more impersonal football arenas. Deer Creek felt like an oasis, a beautiful new 18,000 capacity amphitheater set amidst agricultural fields on the outskirts of Indianapolis. That first visit in 1989 was particularly welcome, coming on the heels of a summer tour that up to that point had only hit stadiums, 7 huge shows in a row before the band came to Deer Creek. That was also a tour marked by large amounts of rain, including the Alpine concerts at Deer Creek, after Deer Creek, but the Deer Creek show featured a classic Midwestern, sunny, hot, humid evening of music, and you really do get that feeling here. They are flying at the seat of their pants. This is robust energy music. They are happy and they are just about exploding with ideas, and maybe it's not gonna all work out. Maybe Jerry doesn't remember the lyrics. Maybe his guitar doesn't want to cooperate. Maybe things just don't quite work, but you're gonna do it anyway. You are it, this is when they say without a net, they are without a net. This is crazy. They open with Bertha, greatest story ever told. You've got rock energy immediately happening. You have got Phil, a huge, booming, strong bass Phil on this whole show. His instrument sounds huge and enormous and beautiful. He's pushing. Everybody's pushing, and you can tell they're pushing each other. Jerry might not be able to hang on, specifically, but like, so we've got a high energy, rocked up opening already. The party vibe has started. You've got Candyman with the flowing water phaser sound with Jerry, bringing it down a little bit, just kind of trying to cool it off a little bit. You know, you've had your first drink, things are keeping, you're spinning it up a little bit. You gotta cool it down a little. Candyman's perfect. It's always welcome. Uh, they come back with some blues. You know, they're just smooth sailing. Bobby's doing walking blues. You know, and so it's not as good as that version that's on Without a Net or some versions on Spring '90, but this one's they're both having slide fun. Slide guitar, Bobby and Jerry both get, and everyone gets to take a little bit of a solo for the most part. So they're walking along. You know, Jerry's doing a beautiful Peggio next, so he's the one that's bringing the party back down a little bit, and beautiful Peggio. If you can remember most of the lyrics, it doesn't really matter. His guitar is the one that's singing. His guitar is awesome. Jerry's playing beautifully. Might not have the mindset to remember all the words or in the right order, but it doesn't really matter. You know, no one would have said anything. He was just present in the guitar playing. Um, Bobby steps up next with Queen Jane approximately. I love this song. I might not have loved it or understood it when I was younger, a younger Deadhead. Now I think it's awesome. It's very it's beautiful. This is before MIDI, so Jerry's very intricate guitar lines and this story of this Dylan songs being said. It's a great performance, a great take. Then everybody gets to have a song for the most part, and Brett steps up with his environmental anthem, "We Can Run," which is just as prescient, just as real today as it was when it was sung in 1989. You know, you're dumping your trash in my backyard, and you're trying to make sure that no one's looking so hard. You know, put it all on plastic, and who knows where we'll be when the bills hit. Um, you know, the song's a little hokey, but the message is as strong as ever, and so you know, all the you're so busy with guns and your reasons to use them. You know, it's definitely a very potent message. The music might not be as potent, but that doesn't really matter. You know, we can run, but we can't hide. So it's the message is what's important there. Bird Song closes it out. About a 14-minute version of Bird Song, which is kind of a strange place to end the you know to end the proceedings for the first set, but they bring it down and they do some very nice jamming to bring that set to a close. We're opening the next set. We're clearly in the what is the Built to Last era here. So we're doing Foolish Heart into Victim of a Crime. Foolish Heart. So they're piecing everything together. Jerry might not necessarily have everything together in his head, but they are so filled with energy and filled with this thing that they're doing that the experience is what's important. And so you have Foolish into Victim of a Crime, Victim or the Crime. And Victim of the Crime gets into some spaces, like some MIDI craziness, which is awesome. So for about 18 or 20 to 18 minutes, they do it progressively gets more and more psychedelic, and it ends with this endpoint, this dream song called Crazy Fingers. And Jerry might not have all the words and lyrics in his mind straight, but his guitar shines through. And so he's on it when it comes to the guitar. The words might not fit in his mouth, but he's singing well and playing well, and the band is right there with him, making this dream happen. Out of the darkness of the Victim of the Crime, you have the dreamy lightness of Crazy Fingers, and then Bobby steps back and pushes it towards a truckin'. So you got rock music back. You have the Dead's anthem, truckin'. It's really goes into a very strange Smokestack Lightning kind of jam portion after truckin'. They could have pushed it and they could have kept pushing, but they pushed down into this groove, and it kind of disintegrates, and it is an odd area to be in. They don't quite know where to push it. The music just kind of dissolves it into drums, and so you have a cool drum solo. You got Mickey on the beam. You got tribal drumming. Everything that drums is from this era. The third disc opens with MIDI Space. You have a pretty long version of Space. It's like 17 minutes of Space, which you think is a lot, but it actually is extremely interesting music. If you've got your mind set on, you got your ears on, you hear what they're doing. And so that you got MIDI happening. They were just creating these textures and sound shapes and stuff. And so we get into Tridentol, where there's some problems. Some things are happening with Jerry that his guitar does not want to cooperate with him. It starts squealing and feeding back, and he's trying to find these MIDI areas, and he's trying to put distortion onto the MIDI, and something happens where they have to redo a verse again before his main solo, and they have to redo a verse, which is, I've never really ever heard them do that. I'm sure maybe it happened at some point, but you don't really hear that on anything that's been released. And so there's some problems happening with Jerry. He's not having the best night when it comes to things that working exactly correctly for him, but he comes back and they go into Watchtower. He's trying to find his space. It's rock version Watchtower, and so he eventually finds his space. They really rock through all along the Watchtower, and so then Jerry steps up with Stella Blue, brings it back down, which is kind of the hallmark what he's doing here on the show. Is he's bringing it down to the ballad area and bringing the, you know, almost down to a pin drop of music, and it just works beautifully. Stella Blue works beautifully here in this space. Bobby comes back up with Sugar Magnolia to rock us into the encore. You know, we've made it. We finally made it through. You know, maybe things didn't exactly work out the way you wanted it to, but they worked, and he got there. So you got a triumphant Sugar Magnolia. Their blossoms blooming and heads all empty, but I don't care. They come back with a great Broke Down Palace, where Brent has a great solo there on Broke Down Palace. He's got a great solo. That you can tell that they're like, we haven't played this one in a while. It feels like they're shaking the rust off. But that's kind of goes with the entire, like, without a net experience of this concert, is they are without a net. They are just doing things, and maybe you don't exactly stick the landing, but it's the act of doing that is the important thing here, and with energy and enthusiasm and just ideas. Maybe some of them don't work out. Maybe your guitar doesn't want to like cooperate, but you push through and you find these areas that wouldn't exist again, wouldn't exist before. And so this is awesome. This is a great show. A lot of rock music happening here. Maybe could stand on its own when it comes to being a Dave's Picks. I don't know. There's some problems, but those problems are what make the Grateful Dead the Grateful Dead. So it's endearing to hear them have problems and to work through them, and to, you know, say, yeah, we're in the middle of a song and my guitar doesn't work anymore. What am I going to do? Well, let's just play this section over again. You know, they're friends. It's the music of friendship. It's chamber music. They lift each other up. They hold each other. They lift that flag together, and so that's what this is. It's resilient music, and that's, you know, that is the gift that these guys, Bobby, gave to us. And so, like, share, subscribe. We got 7, 18, 89. We have one more left. So, have a good one.